So this is where we enter the twilight zone. But it's a twilight zone, again, everything is a point of observation. A twilight zone to a mainstream journalist will be perfectly bloody logical with someone who's done 50 years or so, or 25 years, or how many years it is of research into something. This is an important point about perception. One of the greatest ways that humanity is controlled is by the suppression of the sense of the possible.
I just thought, I don't know, that I'd finally given you something. Something you like. Something we both like. Like we had something in common or something. That's no big deal. I'm tired. I'm going to bed.
Dad, just hang on a second, will you? Remember a time when I was 6 or 7 years old? You were getting ready for work, and you're getting dressed, and I was playing with your badge. And you sat me down and you said that it was not a toy, that it was a symbol of something very important, of integrity and honesty and helping people. Well, from then on, every time I'd see you put on that badge, I would think of that.
Just said it so you'd stop playing with the damn thing. You were getting it all sticky.
You be that as it may. I've tried to live up to your example and help other people. I've tried as a psychiatrist to conduct myself with the same integrity that you showed as a police officer. And when I find myself in a quandary as to the proper course of action, I think of you wearing that badge. And then I know what I have to do. You gave me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dad. Thanks.
All right. Welcome to Axiom series, The Underlying Truth, on the Wild Bill YouTube network, WBYTN. And before I begin, I'd like to remind you to don't forget to like this video, subscribe to WBYTN. Feel free to leave comments, observations, questions, and most importantly, share this content with your friends and family. So moving on, I'd like to remind all viewers what is meant by Axiom series, the underlying truth. This particular video series that I came up with is intended to remind people that no matter what you read, no matter what you see on the internet, no matter what you watch on TV, no matter whatever you talk about with your friends, family, strangers, no matter what topic you are discussing, there is always another side to the story, and usually more than one other side. So moving on to today's story, this video, mothers policing and their influences, because this is going to be a little bit different one. Any creator of content out there on YouTube, Rumble, whatever platform you do use, you always try to how can I put this? Because it might sound harsh sometimes with some of the things I say, and I don't mean that. I don't mean to sound so harsh sometimes, but sometimes some things just have to be said, you know what I mean? But some creators all creators like to tell their stories, get their opinions out there, get their facts out there, try to get a discussion going. And sometimes creators miss the points that they're trying to put out there. And I can get lost in that stuff too, because I do my best to use the proper words and to arrange my words and to speak with intelligence and experience and wisdom. And sometimes it falls short. Sometimes other creators fall short. That's what the comment section is for, to have a discussion going, and I understand that. But today's story, today's video is going to be a story. I want to tell you this story about mothers, police, and the influences on my life. And yes, they both had, my mother and police had tremendous influence on my life. Influence, impact, etc., etc., if you know what I'm getting at about that. Today's story I'm going to tell is about a life dream I had one time in my life. When I was young, under 10 years old. And it was because of my uncle. I wanted to be a cop when I was a young kid, under 10 years old. Well, when I was younger, up until about 14, almost 15. It was up until I hit grade 8 that I let go of this dream, because I never told my mother this, because of this one story I'm going to tell. And it's not a bad thing, but her actions in my life when I was in grade 8 showed me that you could be a decent, strong-hearted person with integrity and wisdom, without a police badge on your chest. Because you see, growing up, it was because my Uncle Doug, when he became a police officer on my reserve, I'm from the Batchewana First Nation. And when my uncle became a police officer for the Batchewana Police Force, he had tremendous influence, and I hold a lot of respect for him for that, for building it up into an organization that protected the community and stuff like. I held a lot of regard for my uncle when he became a police officer. He doesn't know that. I've never told him that. And it was because of him that I wanted to become a police officer. Because growing up until I was about 14, almost 15, I saw a policeman holding the highest amount of integrity and honor that someone could have. And I don't say that lightly. I used to think that about the police when I was a kid. I used to look up to them quite a bit. A lot of people don't know that about me. That was until, had to be the spring of '85 when I was in grade 8 at St. Bernadette Catholic School in Sault Ste. Marie. And I wasn't living on the reserve then. My family wasn't living on the reserve then. We were living in Sault Ste. Marie, on the hill, just outside, just on the edge of what's called the Pea Patch. Pea Patch is a group of streets that start with the letter P in Sault Ste. Marie, the Pea Patch. And that's where St. Bernadette was, up on McNabbin Pine area. And one night I was hanging out with a friend of mine that lived over behind the YMCA, and I was biking home, and I was biking home, and then I got into an argument with a couple guys I knew that were friends of mine back then. At that time, they were friends, but we argued and argued, and I can't remember what the argument was about, but they both wanted to fight me, and they were between a couple houses. So I got off my bike, put my bike on the kickstand, and I started walking at them. And I told them, I'll fight you both. I don't care. I'll fight both of you right here and right now, I told them. And it was nighttime, the sun went down, so it had been about late springtime, so like 8 o'clock at night, maybe 9, something like that, 10 maybe even. So I started walking at them, get into a fight with a couple guys, and then they pulled out a couple of baseball bats. Believe me, I took a pause. I thought about going ahead with it, but a couple guys with a couple bats. This question is the better part of valor, they say. So I left, but I was angry. I never told my mom what happened when I got home. And that anger, I just figured after I got sleep and woke up the next morning that I wouldn't be as angry as I was at that moment when I got home, because I was fuming. I was steaming. But But I didn't want to take the chance to fight a couple guys that had a couple that each had a baseball bat in their hands. You know, be as at me, only 14 years old. I went home and I went to bed. Next morning, this anger, this rage I had of the situation and what these two guys wanted to do to me festered, I guess. It didn't leave me. I got up pretty early and I washed up and I had breakfast and I went right out to school, man. I went right out to school. Mom was surprised because I really didn't say anything that morning, you know. And I went to school and I was fuming. I was still like, I don't know if anybody could understand what I mean, fuming with anger, fuming with this. I was fuming. So when I got to school, I waited for them before school started, and when they showed up for school, I was gonna be. If I would have got my hands on them, I would have beat them up that morning. But I did chase them. I did chase them around the parking lot, around the teachers' cars, and I chased them, man. And the principal, Mr. Farah, and a couple other teachers, I believe, and some of my classmates got in between and calmed me down enough to go to class. But with each ticking of the clock, man, I couldn't wait till after school to get my hands on these two guys. And when school ended that day, Mr. Farrer called me into the principal's office and called one of those guys into the office. And Mr. Farrer could see I was determined to fight them. I was determined. He saw that. And he saw that there was nothing he could do to stop me. I told him what happened the night before. As a matter of fact, as I recall, I told the guy I did beat up after that I should just go ahead and kick his fucking ass right there in the principal's office. But I didn't, out of respect for that principal. For no other reason but respect for that principal. But I told him, as soon as I'm off school property, you can't stop me. So Mr. Farah told my classmate that it was clear to him that there was nothing he could do, and I understood there was no fighting on school property. But he told my classmate that he was going to give him 5 minutes to go home, and I agreed to that. So I sat in the chair there as that classmate left, and I waited five minutes, and he still tried to talk me out of beating this guy up. And I remember I told that principal, I said, when two guys come at you with baseball bat, there is going to be a fight. There is going to be violence. And I defy anybody that would not have done what I did after. I did not have to look for these guys. Just on the other side of the street, there was a crosswalk right in front of the school, crossing Lab Street there. Like with lights, you hit the button and traffic stops and you go across them type of crosswalks. And on the other side of the street, my other classmates held those guys for me, kept them there. And if anybody is listening to this that is from my 1985 class of 85 from St. Bernadette in Sault Ste. Marie, you remember this. I grabbed a hold of the one guy and I dropped him one shot. One shot. And then I chased the other guy. And anybody of my classmates that remember this will remember this. I chased this guy into his neighborhood, but he knew he wasn't going to make it home. So he went to a house that had neighborhood watch sign on there, and he started pounding on the door with both hands. Let me in, let me in, let me in. I went up on that porch, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I did like a Chuck Norris sidekick, and I kicked this guy right in the chest. And he bounced off that door, fell on that porch, and I just started wailing on him. Where's your fucking bat now? Bam, bam, bam. And I beat the shit out of him until a classmate of mine come and drag me off of him. And he gets up and he runs home crying, yelling. And my classmate, he could not believe that I did that, because I'm not a violent person. I'm not a violent guy. Every single one of us has the potential to be violent, and I understand that. That's part of being a human being. And he could not believe that I beat those guys up like that. And he calmed me down, and he walked me part way home. And I got home, and I wasn't home 10 minutes. I was in the living room, and I can't even remember the layout of the house we lived in. There might have been steps going down to our side door. We had a front door and we had a side door. And there might have been steps with a little hallway, like 2 ways to get to the side door, one from the kitchen and one from a little hallway, I think. And then there was a knock at the side door, and then this man walks in. I don't even remember if he had identified himself as a cop. I think he did, briefly, like, didn't show his badge, but he just walked in. Did not, you know what I mean? He knocked on the door and he walked in. And the violence could have escalated there, because my mother, everybody's mother is a big influence on their life. At least from my generation and going back generations. And I'd like to think to these generations of mothers are the same way. But I wonder. I do wonder about that. Because from the generation I was a kid, the way things are now, there's no heart in today's generation. I find no heart, no integrity, no intelligence, even in some cases. And this might sound harsh, but I wonder if mothers are doing the job today as mothers did when I was a kid. Because motherhood and fatherhood are the most important things in a young person's life, man or boy or girl, man or woman, male or female. A mother's influence and father's influence are the most important on somebody's life. And definitely my mother had the most influence in my life. So this cop knocks on the door and he walks in. And he announced that he was going to arrest me. And what my mother did next, I could not believe my eyes when I saw this. My mother's only like 5'5". You know what I mean? But being from the generation she was when she grew up, and whatever, having kids and diet and all that, but she was stronger than I ever thought. And I don't even mean physically. I mean strong of heart, strong of spirit. She grabbed this cop by the lapels on his suit jacket, grabbed him by the lapels, and walked him, pushed him, walked him backwards, right out the door. And asked him to pull his badge and asked him why he was there. And he showed his badge, and then he announced he's going to arrest me for assault because those two guys already called the police on me. And he was just going to slap the cuffs on me and take me away. And my mother demanded that he do his job and talk to me before he arrested me, because I was a 14-year-old boy. And there's two sides to every story. And so we sat in the kitchen, me and this cop. My mother was there, and I told him my side of the story of the night before with those baseball bats, why I beat them up today, that day. You know what I mean? And he didn't want to believe me. He asked me if there's a witness. I said, I go see so and so and go see this person, because there were people that witnessed these guys come at me with baseball bats. I promise you, somebody saw it. People saw this. And sure enough, well, I don't know if he actually went and looked and investigated, but when he heard my side of the story, he told me he wasn't going to arrest me. But I told him that I wasn't a violent person. I did not do stuff like that. I never had a reputation like that, just to go beat somebody up. I've gotten into into fights, and I've gotten beaten up in my day, and I beat people up. But I'm not a violent person that goes out looking for it. And if anybody knows me well, knows that about me, that I am not a violent person at heart. So, but what I never told my mom this for the rest of her life until she died a couple years ago. I've never told this to my mother, but that day, the way that cop did that was just going to arrest me without investigating, without asking me what happened. I saw the laziness of cops that day. The only way I could put that. To believe first thing they're told and just to make an arrest. You know what I mean? I don't know if you know what I'm getting at about that. But I gave up my dream and desire to become a police officer that day because of that policeman's actions on trying to force himself into my house to arrest me without investigating, to arrest me on the first thing that he's told without knowing the full story and getting to the truth of it. But to praise him, he did listen to me and he didn't arrest me. So now fast forward to 1993 when I got arrested in the death of my niece. That's 30 years ago that happened. And it was almost 40 years ago that I got into that fight. Think about that, how time flies, eh? So in 93 my niece dies and I get falsely accused of murder and sexual assault and the death of my niece. So the morning I was arrested on June 27th, 1993. And I spent the whole night in the Sault Ste. Marie police station in a holding cell, undergoing periodic interrogation sessions from this cop that arrested me. And the next morning, before he took me up to the Sault jail, when he knew he was getting nowhere with me, he pounded his fist on the table and told me that he was angry about this and that he was going to make sure that I went down for this. He was personally going to put me in jail for this. And then he gets up and takes me by the arm to take me back down to the holding cell, and we met in the doorway, like literally right in the door under the door frame. And I looked at this cop right in the eye, and I told him what I asked him why he doesn't just pull out his gun and put a bullet in the back of my head. And he was shocked. His eyes went big a little bit, and he flinched. And, why would you say something like that? And I looked him directly in the eye, and I said, I am an innocent man, and you know it. And killing me will be easier than what you're about to put me through. 12 years later, the evidence came out that there was no crime in my case of sexual assault or murder. I was factually innocent of that crime. And in 2007, at the Ontario Court of Appeal, I got acquitted. The point of that story is, since I got out in 2005 until now, policing is worse than it ever was. Because it appears to me, from what I've experienced in my lifetime since I got out and what I see going on in society, is police aren't police anymore. They are soldiers supporting an agenda. They are police. Many of them are bullies. Many of them don't investigate. Many of them don't know how to think for themselves. have no conscience. It seems. That's the way it seems to me. Just take a look at what's going on in the world right now in relation to policing. And if you take an honest look of what you think policing is to what's going on, there is a major gap there. Because they are not protecting society anymore, it seems. I'm always hearing instances of blaming the victim under labels like domestic assault, domestic violence, for example. That blanket term. It takes away from police of investigating what happens. It takes away from a lot of things. Because I'm sure there are a lot of good police officers out there. But policing on the whole, it's not policing anymore. You know what I mean? So I do hope, because from the time I got out of jail in 2005 to now, I don't fear the police. People do, because when it comes to Axiom, the self-evident truth, what the axiom means, but the underlying truth, the axiom, underlying truth that I know of policing is that they, and you may say I'm exaggerating when I say this, but I know it the whole truth. A police officer can take you to the police station, beat the living hell out of you, put a bullet back of your head, call it suicide, and get away with it. I know that to be true, to hold truth. Is that the kind of policing we want? I don't know. It's not the kind of policing I want in my community, but it is here. So, with that, I would like to leave you with this. I hope that people listen to this video and understand the message that I'm trying to put forth about mothers, policing, and the influences that they have on our lives. Because when I was a young boy, like I said, I wanted to be a police officer because of my uncle. But as my life went on with my interaction with police, the way I understand policing, that kind of policing does not exist anymore. Because they don't use their own hearts, their own conscience to investigate a situation. And I'm going to leave it there. But I'm going to leave it with a clip from my video Axiom series, Policing in Canada, which centered around that cop from Toronto Police that retired after 24 years, 25 years, whatever it was, in Toronto Policing, that was being interviewed by that lawyer, Joseph Newberg. And with that clip, this video is going to end, and I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for listening to me. And with that, I will say, Bamapi, be safe, be good to each other. Bamapi.
What consequences did you suffer from that?
That's a good point. From
saying I'm not charging the guy.
nothing.
Nothing.
Was your memo disclosed to the defense? Or was it buried by the police?
Good question, too.
Well, that I don't know. I would assume it would be buried.
I hope everybody understood that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would be buried. And
Horrible.
But here's the phrase that I just cannot stand. Let the court decide.
Let the court sort it out.
Yeah.
Can't stand it. Stop it. My job is to charge someone. That's my job. Whether they're guilty or innocent, that's the court's job. Like, they do that. But I don't jeopardize people's lives from being lazy.
But you saw your job as to investigate alleged crimes.
Yeah,
And investigation is an unbiased, objective approach.
that's correct.
And so you are to determine whether there really is reasonable grounds.
That's correct.
If not, you don't charge. That's the way you ran your business. That's the way you operated as a police officer and a detective.
So when I joined, a very senior deputy chief, said to me, when you go into an investigation, go in to prove them innocent.
Wow.
Prove them innocent, because that way you're not biased. I don't go in thinking you're guilty or whatever. I go in to find evidence.
Do you think that's the way it is in the last decade?
No, I don't think it's been that. I don't think it's been that way in the last 30 years. But
Right. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think you go in with the presumption of guilt,
Yeah.
and you're trying to find evidence to confirm guilt, and you do the bare minimum to find out other evidence that may contradict their narrative.
yeah, well, don't do it.
Well, that was pretty intense, man. Let's listen to what he had to say there again, just one more time.
When I joined, a very senior deputy chief, said to me, when you go into an investigation, go in to prove them innocent.
Wow.
Prove them innocent.
Well, he was told by a senior detective, his boss, when he first started, I guess. That's what I'm assuming. That he was told, when you go into an investigation, you go in to prove them innocent. That way, and I'm only assuming by doing it that way, you prove, you follow the evidence. Okay? That's what I'm getting from that. But now let's listen to what he said. How long this has been? What he said later on, which I don't know if you viewers caught this. I caught this right away. But listen carefully to what he says next.
Because that way you're not biased. I don't go in thinking you're guilty or whatever. I go in to find evidence.
Do you think that's the way it is in the last decade?
No, I don't think it's been that. I don't think it's been that way in the last 30 years.
Well, that was pretty intense too. That, in his opinion, the way he views things, his experience as a police officer, that he was trained to go into an investigation to prove innocence, not to be biased against the accused or the suspect, or that way he could follow the evidence and make sure that a crime even happened. Then he said he doesn't think, to paraphrase him, he doesn't think that it's been that way for 30 years. And that, I could agree with that 100%.
So, controlling the sense of the possible. Because if you're doing things out here, and you've got the sense of the possible here, then when people like me say, this is what's going on, that goes, you're bloody mad, that's not possible, that can't be going on. And the biggest problem is that, and it's not every one of them, by the way. I was talking to one the other day who was very kind of intelligent, involved in all this, but this, in general, is my experience after 25 years of the perception of the possible of a mainstream bloody journalist. And that's why people who speak the greater truth, and have done throughout the period of the media, have invariably been ridiculed and dismissed, because that cannot perceive that the possibility that it can be true.